All right. Hey. Yes. Hi. Hello. I am making yet another video. Uh, so this is something that I've been sort of planning in the back of my brain for a while now. Um, and it was kind of amorphous, but like I want to talk about borderline personality disorder. Um, and I guess when I'll be talking about it from the perspective of somebody who has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which I will be from here on in calling BPD because it's easier. So a little bit my own experience, also just a little bit of what it is and what it isn't. Some of the lesser known stuff that y'all might not know about, and I'm gonna go on to talk about the stigma that people with it face, specifically speaking as a psych student. And then I'm going to go on a little bit to talk about why certain people will target us. There are people who are just attracted to that personality type, but like there's also I don't want to call them abusers because not everybody's is necessarily an abuser. It's been a long day. I'm just gonna start. So, God damn it. Okay, so what it is. What you guys probably know about is the fear of rejection and like frantic attempts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So I'm not going to go too far into that. But I will go into first and foremost the instability of mood, because bipolar is not like some people think that bipolar is like Jekyll and Hyde. 1 minute you're one way, 1 minute you're another way. That is not how it works. It's more cyclical over longer periods of time. But with BPD, you can be like one way one minute, and then like something happens and you change your whole affect and your mood completely changes. And one of the reasons that this can be such a big problem is that we don't tend to have a very good sense of object permanence. And what that means is if something's not happening right now, or if somebody's not there right now, we have a very hard time remembering what it feels like to be around that person or doing that thing. We tend to want to have objects that remind us of the people that we love for this reason. And so when we're experiencing a really intense emotion, not only are we experiencing an intense emotion, but we're also we also get completely lost. We lose the fact that like it's not that we have not felt this way our whole lives, and that we will feel differently in the future. It's really difficult to describe for me just because it just doesn't make sense. But like suddenly it's like I have always felt this way, I will always feel this way. This is the way the world works. And we get really entrapped in that, which is a lot of the time why we do some really extreme shit to get out of a mood. All right. Next. Identity problems. We tend to have unstable identities, and we build our identities on a lot of external stuff. Without having a true sense of it. Or like, for instance, one good example is before I went to therapy school, my whole identity was I was a crazy person. And that was like, I didn't really have much going on. I didn't really know who I was outside of that. So people with BPD will often cycle through they'll try on a lot of different identities. I don't know what the statistics are for gender stuff. And I also hesitate to like say that my gender stuff is correlated somehow with my BPD, but I do think that people with BPD are more likely to question their gender, their assigned gender. All right, let's see. It's not really understood what causes any any personality disorder. But there does seem to be a genetic component. Like, I don't remember the exact statistic, but a significant number of people who are diagnosed with it have a mother who has it as well. And which brings me to, women are diagnosed with it far more often than men. And this doesn't, from what I understand, that has a lot to do with just the way that men and women are socialized, where men are more socialized to be more aggressive and well, I guess what I'm getting at is, I think, and again, not sure what the statistics are, but that men will gravitate towards more behaviors of antisocial personality disorder, which is on the same. There are different clusters of personality disorders in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. And BPD is a cluster B personality disorder. Other cluster Bs are antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic, and histrionic personality disorder. So more men are diagnosed with antisocial and more women are diagnosed with borderline. All right. We also experience chronic feelings of emptiness. A lot of that, I think, has to do, well, all right. I think a lot of that has to do with our unstable and intense relationships. We have so much trouble with interpersonal relationships, and it's not just in a romantic sense. We have what is known as an FP, or a favorite person, and we fixate on that person. We will, like, if we're not careful, we can become codependent. We can base our whole identities on that person, or our whole well-being, a sense of well-being, on a different person. But we also don't have a lot of skills to deal with interpersonal relationships as they relate to our symptoms, our like the way that we fucking explode mentally if we feel abandoned. Even if we're not being abandoned, if we can just misinterpret something, or just, like, for some reason feel that we are being abandoned, and it's just as real as though it were happening for us in that moment. Another reason that our interpersonal relationships can really suffer is that we tend to express really intense anger. Like people will just rage, and I've been through this, as, like, I've done this, and my pet theory about what that's coming from is that most people with BPD have some sort of history of, not necessarily abuse, but abuse or neglect, or just a dysfunctional family. Which, I mean, people with borderline personality disorder who become parents pass that shit on if they're not aware of it, if they don't get help. Fuck. Anyway, anger. That will drive people away. And, if somebody, like, just totally, okay, example. If we're in a stable relationship, we've been together for a while, maybe we're living together, or not, like, but we tend to want to spend all of our time with you. And say you just, like, a bunch of your friends are getting together, who I don't know as your partner, and, like, there's going to be a party or just a get together or whatever, and, like, for whatever reason we can't come, or we're not invited, maybe it's whatever, we will have a very, very difficult time with that. And, like, we might be texting you over and over and over again, or calling over and over and over again, or just, like, with increasing, like, with more and more heightened, like, irritability or whatever. Yeah, so that'll really destroy a relationship. That, and, like, we oftentimes get either we form addictions or, you know, just substance abuse problems, and or we'll have spending problems, or we will self-harm, which in the DSM, it's a different category, but those are all just ways to get through the moment and to survive the moment. And I think it provides it's a mood altering thing. So, and like, it makes a lot of sense where, like, you're experiencing this mood and it's the worst thing in the world and you feel like you were either going to explode or jump off a bridge. It's an effective tool to do something that is going to alter your mood somehow. Let's see. I didn't really get to... Fuck, no. I'll cut that out. I don't know. Here's something that a lot of people, even I didn't know about this until I looked it up. Personality disorders are not diagnosed in people who are under 18 because they're considered incurable. And I don't believe this myself. But it is something that it's considered embedded in your personality. It's not considered untreatable, but it's not considered something that you can fully recover from. However, in 92% of cases of borderline personality disorder, within 15 years, 72% are recovered. And within 27 years, 92% are recovered. That's a big statistic. And I think that oftentimes it can be like people who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder are just going through like an extended adolescence. They haven't decided who they are yet. They haven't figured out how to do interpersonal relationships yet. So I think that it can be misdiagnosed. Okay, so another thing, we have this pattern of idealization and evaluation, especially with our favorite people. So we tend to, like, especially in the beginning, will just, you're the best thing. It's amazing that you even, like, want to spend time with me because you're just so fucking perfect all the time. And, you know, we'll see you as, like, a savior or whatever. You can do no wrong until you do make a mistake or whatever. And then we fucking flip. And it becomes it's almost like we feel betrayed that you're not perfect the way we thought you were. And then we get mad. And then, that's known as this idealization devaluation cycle. I don't need to be chewing gum. And, like, that just adds to the fucking roller coaster of being in a relationship with somebody with BPD. All right, so I'm going to move on to the second part of the video, which is going to involve stigma and my own experiences. So I didn't know this, but I first started being treated for BPD when I was like 14 or 13. Again, like, I wasn't diagnosed because I was so young, but my behavior really fit with it. I didn't have a sense of identity. I couldn't be social with people. I didn't have social skills, which was sort of beside the point. But oh my God, just the roller coaster of my mood it was all over the place. And like okay, I will go on. And for a long time, in my adolescence, being crazy and having BPD specifically was like part of my identity. I was in a few psych wards, maybe 3 or 4 times as like a teenager, and I got along, like, I did well socially in the psych ward, much better than I did in like normal school settings. And I think this had a lot more to do with feeling more comfortable to be myself than anything else. But I like took that and ran with it. And it also was, was an easy way to like not feel so bad about my fuck ups and be like, well, I'm crazy, so That was a big defense. And I think a lot of other people with BPD do that. I've met a lot of other people who do that. So I went to a therapeutic boarding school where they didn't really talk about it. It wasn't, most of the kids who went to that school were not mentally ill. Like, they were mostly just, had very wealthy parents who didn't know how to set boundaries. So it just wasn't part of that. And then, let's see, I started college in 2009, and the first year was okay. And then I discovered fucking psychedelics, and that facilitated, I was like, I don't need my medication anymore. I ended up dropping out because of a suicide attempt, which is not unusual for people with BPD. Suicide ideation and suicidal thoughts, etc., that's usually a big part of it. But I was not daunted. I went to I enrolled at the New School University in New York City. And let's see, I psych major, and I really enjoyed it. The first year was great. Yes, the first year was great. But there was, I took this abnormal psych class in my second semester there, and it was taught by a professor who I fucking loved. He was fantastic. He had this very sweet little mustache, and I thought he was funny. I thought he was really intelligent. I really enjoyed his lectures, and he really liked me, which made me very, very happy. And I really enjoyed the class. And we basically, like most abnormal psych classes, we went through the DSM. And when there was one lecture on each personality disorder, and I went in on the day that we were there to cover BPD, and this professor, who again I idolized, started the class, as he did with all of these disorders. He would say, so does anybody here have borderline personality disorder? And I did not raise my hand, because even then I knew that, at that point I was in my early 20s, and I'd been in the mental health field as a patient for a long time. So I knew that not everybody was singing our praises. So I did not raise my hand. And so he looked around, nobody else raised their hand, and he was like, so nobody has BPD? Good. This is the disorder that you don't want to treat. If you have, you want to avoid treating patients with this at all costs. He said, and these are direct quotes, it's kind of hard to forget them. He said that, again, don't ever treat patients with this. He actually used the word evil, which just sort of really surprised me, because New School University is a good school. And I was at Eugene Lang, which is their liberal arts school, but their School of Social Sciences is incredible. So I expected not to be told that somebody with a certain mental illness is evil. He said that we're manipulative, which is often true, although it's not part of the criteria for diagnosis. Said that we were evil. He spent the whole class just talking shit about people with BPD, and it wasn't just him. In our textbook, for this, in the section of that covered BPD, there was a screenshot from the movie Fatal Attraction, which it's a movie, it's not going to be an accurate portrayal, even if the character is written to have BPD. It's just, that really took me aback, that class. And where if it had been another professor, I might have, gone into, not a rage, but gone into one of my self-righteous rants about what are you talking about? This, this is not professional, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did not do that. And it just sort of festered, I finished the class. I did not talk to the professor about it. And it wasn't because of this, but that summer and that fall semester, I fell into a really deep depression. I stopped going to class. And I ended up dropping out again after another suicide attempt, which was not, again, not, it wasn't because of that class. It had a lot more to do with the relationship that I was in that was ending. But anyway, that's how that ended. And like, also, like, this was a big class. There were 30 kids in this class, most of whom fully intended to go on to have a career in psychology or psychiatry. And they, they had no reason to doubt him. So that was really, that really opened my eyes. And as a psych student since then, I've seen that a lot. Okay. Yes, so one thing that I've encountered a lot also is to do with stigma. This is less in like the mental health industry. Although, okay, before I move on, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine who was a medic in the Navy and has done a good amount of clinical work. I was talking to him about doing this video, and when I mentioned the stigma, he was like, oh yeah, like doctors I worked with, if they saw that they had someone with BPD on the roster, they would immediately start complaining about it. They would try to avoid it. And like every mental health professional who I've talked to has either had very negative things to say about people with BPD or is aware of the stigma. It doesn't help that people with BPD wind up in the ER fairly often from self-harm, from like ODing or, substance abuse, from suicide attempts, or just from just straight up risky behavior. And I've been in the ER a few times, and they're not very tolerant of anybody with any sort of mental illness in my experience. All right. And okay, now I'm gonna move on where like when I tell people that I have BPD, because now that I am essentially recovered, I do consider myself recovered. I've been asymptomatic for, God, at least 3 years, maybe 4. I've been in a stable relationship going on for more than 3 years. That's still going strong. I have occasionally lapsed into self-harming behavior or risky behavior during periods of like just a lot of stress. But largely I consider myself fairly recovered. And and like you don't hear about people who recover very often. Almost everybody who finds out that I have BPD, they're like, "Oh, really? I knew somebody with BPD," and like commence horror story. I don't remember where I was going with that, and I do want to move on to Marsha Linehan. Because, okay, so there's the therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, is considered the only therapy that can help people with BPD. It was designed specifically for people with BPD by a woman named Marsha Linehan. And one thing that a lot of people don't know that I think more people should, especially more people who have BPD, is that Marsha Linehan has it. She has struggled with BPD for a really long time. She used to self-harm. I don't know how much she's like open about, but I read so like, first of all, there's, there are a lot of people who have BPD who recover, way more than ever get talked about. And also, I think that people who have BPD are uniquely equipped to help treat it, because we know it can be so weird for other people to really put themselves in that mindset. Partially because like our self-esteem is universally very, very bad. We usually, one reason that you'll see some people harming themselves in order to make a point or like manipulate somebody is because we don't value like our own bodily well-being usually, and we understand that hurting ourselves will hurt the people we love, but it doesn't, we act like it doesn't hurt us because we don't value that. So yeah, I wanted to add that about Marsha Linehan. And finally, I've noticed there are some people who, for whatever reason, are attracted or like tend to form relationships with people with borderline personality disorder. And there are obviously plenty of reasons to love us. We're really loyal. We're really loving. And we're pretty fun sometimes. But specifically, I think some people will look for somebody with BPD because of how easy it is to gaslight us. We tend to value our own opinions and like outlooks and perspectives and cognition less than other people's. We will, and especially like if we've been in treatment for a long time, we know that our perceptions are often really warped, and we do tend to rely on other people's perceptions sometimes, and that can be a really good thing with healthy relationships.